Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're tackling what is honestly the single most anxiety-inducing personal finance question out there. How much do I actually need for retirement? It's this massive question that kind of just hovers over all of us, keeping a whole lot of people up at night. But listen, today, instead of throwing some giant, scary, totally made-up number at you and just leaving you to panic, we are going to break this whole thing down. We're going to use clear, actionable benchmarks to replace all that anxiety with a structured plan you can actually use to build your future.
Because let's face it, if you search for an answer to this question online, you are immediately hit with a brick wall of chaotic, conflicting advice. One article screams that you absolutely must have $1 million. Literally, the next article insists, no, it's $2 million. And the financial experts? They often just kind of shrug and give you the classic, well, it depends. Which, okay, sure, that's technically true, but it's deeply unhelpful when you're just trying to figure out if you're even remotely on track. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to replace that confusion with absolute clarity by looking at the actual data and the real frameworks the professionals use.
Let's start with our first foundational pillar, Benchmark 1, Age-Based Multiples.
This is a super commonly cited checkpoint system provided by the major retirement plan providers. Now, I want you to think of this less as a rigid finish line and more like mile markers on a marathon route. It uses your current salary to give you a rough gauge of where your savings should be at different distinct stages of your life. So, the standard guidance suggests you aim to have roughly 1 times your current salary saved by age 30. By 40, you want to be at about 3 times your salary. Hitting the big 50, that target jumps to 6 times. By 60, it's 8 times, and that scales up to around 10 times your final salary by the time you reach standard retirement age. Now remember something absolutely critical as we look at this. These are just rough checkpoints, okay? If you make $70,000 a year at age 40, this model says you should ideally have about $210,000 saved. But what if you don't? Do not panic. Seriously. It's just a diagnostic tool, not a pass or fail test of your worth.
Let's move on and see how this builds with Benchmark 2, the 25x rule. So this second benchmark takes a totally different and arguably a way more personalized approach. While our first benchmark looked at what you're earning today, this one focuses entirely on what you anticipate actually spending tomorrow. And look, as we all know from checking our own bank statements, what you earn and what you spend can be two very, very different numbers. The number 25 is the magic key here. This is a wildly popular shortcut in the financial independence community. The rule is brilliantly simple. You aim to save 25 times your desired annual retirement spending. Notice the operative word there is spending. If you know you want a retirement lifestyle that costs exactly $60,000 a year, you just multiply that by 25. Boom! That gives you a savings target of $1.5 million.
Now, for those of you who caught our previous explainer, you might be having a massive light bulb moment right now. The 25x rule directly ties back to that famous 4% safe withdrawal rate we talked about. And this brilliantly illustrates the math connecting your actual spending to your ultimate savings target. Mathematically, 4% is exactly 1/25th. So, by saving 25 times your annual expenses, you're perfectly positioned to withdraw a safe 4% every single year to cover your costs, without depleting your nest egg prematurely. It takes this vague, stressful guessing game and transforms it into a concrete, reliable mathematical equation.
But it's time for an important reality check: why rules are rough guides.
Staring at huge targets like 10 times your salary or $1.5 million can feel incredibly daunting, but I need you to hear this loud and clear. Please do not treat these massive numbers as personalized verdicts on your financial life or your future happiness. They are starting points based on sweeping national averages. They are definitely not ironclad laws. Just look at the massive variables these generic rules completely ignore. They don't account for pensions if you're lucky enough to have one. They don't factor in your specific Social Security benefits. They completely bypass your unique health circumstances, exactly when you actually want to retire, or the specific lifestyle you want. Right? If you plan to travel the world in luxury, well, your number has to go up. But if you plan to downsize to a quiet cabin in the woods and grow your own food, your number drops significantly. These benchmarks ignore crucial, highly individual factors. They're just tools to give you a baseline, not absolute laws set in stone.
So the crucial point is, we need to focus on your savings rate.
We really need to stop agonizing over this distant, abstract, multi-$100,000 lump sum. Staring at the top of a mountain doesn't magically transport you there, right?
taking a step does. We need to pivot away from that terrifying total and focus all of our energy on the most actionable, controllable daily metric you actually have, your savings rate. A commonly cited, incredibly effective target is saving 15% of your income for retirement. And here's the absolute best part about this, that 15% includes any employer match. If your employer matches 5%, you only need to put in 10% yourself. Carving out a 15% slice of your income is a manageable, repeatable action that you can execute and control with every single paycheck. It shifts your whole mindset from, how do I magically find $1 million, to, how do I optimize my budget this month? It effectively neutralizes the fear of a distant target and puts the power firmly back in your hands.
But what if you're looking at that 15% and thinking, there is no way I can do that right now. I am starting way too late. First of all, take a deep breath. As we explicitly covered in our prior explainer on savings data, genuinely, most people are behind these benchmarks. You are not alone. Starting late is a completely valid and survivable path. If 15% is just too much right now, start at 5%. Then increase it by just 1% each year as your income grows or your debts get paid down. It doesn't have to be this intimidating jump today. A gentle, realistic progression will still get you exactly where you need to go.
Let's definitively bust the biggest myth in retirement planning, the idea of one universal magic number. People think if they don't hit some arbitrary generic target, they've failed entirely. The reality? Your number is yours. It depends entirely on your specific life, your geography, and your goals. Comparing your progress to some generic multiple derived from a national average is a lot less useful than comparing your progress today to your progress last year. Are you saving a little more? Is your net worth steadily growing? Ultimately, that is the only metric of success that actually matters. This entire explainer ties directly into our previous deep dives on the 4% rule and national savings data, so if you haven't watched those yet, they are your perfect next steps to build out your complete financial picture. And speaking of next steps, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Grovy, because let's be honest, you could spend your time watching other people on the internet pretending to be rich, or you can subscribe to Grovy and actually do the work to get rich yourself. I know which one I choose. So here's my final thought for you to chew on. Now that you know the math, what is the one single adjustment you are going to make to your savings rate this week to take control of your future? Think about it. I'll see you in the next explainer.